Hey guys, we're looking at 8.2 types of rocks. So I have a beautiful picture here of the rock cycle, which I believe you studied in 6th grade. We're going to look at the 3 rock types and how they form and what kind of information they can tell us too. So the 3 types of rocks are igneous, metamorphic, sedimentary. You may notice some stems in these words, like your stem IGN refers to fire, and morph refers to change or shape. And then this just has the whole word sediment in it. And sediment is just referring to rock particles, basically, smaller rock particles. So this is showing you different pictures of how each of these form. And you can take a look at these nice illustrations and keep them in mind as we go through each of the rock types. So how do rocks form? Igneous rocks. So igneous rocks having the stem IGN for fire in it. Igneous rocks are going to form from cooling lava or magma. And I have some different pictures here of a few types of rocks. This is obsidian, and you can see it's nice and shiny black, kind of glass-like. This is porphyroid, which is a material that you can find here in North Carolina. I've excavated some pieces from around Fayetteville. And then this is a lava flow, and you can see the red-hot lava, so that's the hot melted rock. Literally, it's rock so hot it's melted. And then when it cools down and hardens, it turns a black color. Metamorphic rocks. So metamorphic rocks are going to change due to heat and pressure or chemical reactions. So basically you have rock here, like this is granite, for example, lots of different colors in it, and you can see some different shapes or kind of chunks of color for the different minerals. And when it changes, because it gets all smushed, then you can see striations, these little stripes in it now. So this is granite, and this is gneiss, Gneiss. So it has changed because of heat and pressure for this specific example. It's kind of like if you take a peanut butter jelly sandwich, bread, peanut butter, jelly, bread, and then if you smush it by throwing it in your lunch box or in your backpack, then it's going to get compressed. So basically that's what happens. And then the third rock type is sedimentary. Sedimentary rocks are really cool because they can contain remains of plants and animals. Those are called fossils. So sedimentary rocks can contain fossils, like you see in this example here. You've got some nice little turritella and tiny little marine organism in this particular example. So sedimentary rocks can be made of sediment, so the small rock particles. It could be like chunks of rock, like gravel. It could be sand and seashells. It could be actual, like bones of fish and that kind of thing. Sedimentary rocks, when you see them in a big rock layer, like in a cliff, they're going to have these lines in them. So if you have a picture on your EOG that looks like this and has a bunch of lines, then that is sedimentary rock. If it has all these striations, these horizontal stripes, that is referring to a sedimentary rock layer. That's going to be important when we learn how to determine the age of different rocks. So how are sedimentary rocks formed? So we're going to focus specifically on sedimentary rocks because we're going to be looking at the geologic record and the information that it contains within fossils. So first thing that happens is erosion. So we've already talked about how the different agents of erosion include ice, wind, water, or gravity pulling rocks downward. So that's going to help to move sediment and rock fragments around. And you can see in this big dust storm here, these are homes and you can see street lights and stuff. So that's a huge dust storm. So wind has picked up all of that loose debris and gotten that into the air. This is an example of a valley glacier. So huge chunk of ice that has filled in that mountain, and glaciers basically as they melt can kind of move downward, so gravity can pull them downhill. And then of course water eroding the surface, like some creeks or rivers that you may know of. And we've already looked at a few other pictures as well of erosion from water. Deposition. So the second thing that can happen is deposition. So sediment getting settled out, sediment getting laid down or deposited is what deposition is. So all the lines on the beach right here are where you've had waves that basically come up on the shore and then go back out. on the shore, and then go back out. So every time that water moves upward on the shore, then it deposits a layer or deposits kind of a line of sediment and seashells and all that. So this is prime seashell gathering area. And this picture is interesting because you can see the high tide line all the way up here, and then now it's apparently low tide because the water is all the way down here. And then sand dunes. So sand dunes can be different shapes. A lot of sand dunes you may be familiar with are just basically little hills, and they can also be sort of crescent shaped, just depending on the direction of the wind. The third step in sedimentary rock formation is compaction. And if you've ever seen Star Wars, there's a good trash compactor scene where the heroes, Leia and Chewbacca and Han Solo and Luke, they're all in the trash compactor, and it's getting smaller and smaller and smaller and smaller and smaller, and all the trash is getting smushed together. So compaction is rock particles getting smushed together. So that sediment again being small rock particles, sand, gravel, and such, getting smushed together tightly, and usually this is going to be caused by specifically pressure from rocks above it pushing downward. So that's what you see here, a bunch of loose particles and pressure of overburden. Overburden is just rocks above it pushing downward. So it just makes them closer together, and they may kind of move around or jostle to sort of get into the little air pockets that you see in this kind of picture. So the pores, the air pockets in between, are much smaller. And then the last step is cementation. If you walk on the beach, sometimes you can find these really interesting rocks that are basically big bunches of sand that it kind of looks like it's cemented together because you have all these little pebbles in it. So that's really neat. Sometimes you can find seashells and stuff in it. So cementation is the last part, and you can think of it kind of like glue or cement, which, is kind of a watery, slurry mixture. And basically the water will dissolve minerals like silica and the rock layers around these different particles, and that water will then kind of move in between into these little air pockets, filling it in, and that holds the rocks together, basically kind of glues them together. So not actual glue, but water and mineral glue. So it smushes, everything's been smushed together, so it solidifies and glues all those little particles together. So here's your nice little concept map, and you can complete that as well in your notebook, and we'll walk through it really quickly together. So rock cycle, what this is showing you, igneous rock, so IG in your stem means fire. Igneous rocks classified into extrusive and intrusive. You got some stems there, X and N. And we'll talk about extrusive and intrusive igneous rocks later. So X refers to outside, N refers to within, inside. So igneous rock can undergo the process of erosion, and as it erodes, that will form sediment. So that igneous rock will break down into small little pieces that are called sediment. And then that sediment can then undergo the process of deposition, when it gets deposited in a specific location after it's moved around, compacted, where it's going to be smushed together, and then cementation, where all those particles get kind of glued together. Those 4 steps, erosion, deposition, compaction, cementation, will form sedimentary rock, which may contain, no, you can't see that right there, fossils. It may contain the remains of plants and animals. So that's fossils right there. Sedimentary rock can form into metamorphic rock by heat and pressure. So heat and pressure specifically. Also chemical reactions sometimes, but generally just heat and pressure. So that metamorphic rock can melt and can form into magma and lava, which then when it cools down will form igneous rock. Also notice that there's a couple little arrows here in the center, so that's showing that igneous rock can form metamorphic rock when it gets heated up or by pressure as well. Igneous rock, metamorphic rock, sedimentary rock are your 3 examples of rocks that will undergo the rock cycle.